Hello friend, it's BAWLER again, and this is very important news for you. Please subscribe to my channel and write a comment on what you think about it. A war between the United States and China is no longer a remote possibility. It's increasingly viewed as a matter of when, not if. Both nations are rapidly expanding their military capabilities, circling each other like titans cloaked in shadow. Taiwan serves as the spark, semiconductors as the fuel, and global stability is the potential casualty. While the world may yearn for peace, actions taken behind closed doors indicate an unmistakable drift toward war. This looming conflict is shaped by shifting demographics, economic stress, stealth fighters, cyber warfare, and nuclear brinkmanship, not just a rivalry, but a ticking clock. Why is war between China and the US growing more inevitable? What sobering lessons has Beijing learned from observing the war in Ukraine? Since Taiwan split from mainland China following World War II, Beijing has considered it an inalienable part of its territory. During the Cold War, the US recognized the Taipei government as the legitimate representative of China, further complicating the issue. Back then, China lacked the geopolitical and military clout to assert control, relying instead on economic integration to lure Taiwan back. For decades, Beijing believed time was on its side. The hope was that growing cross-strait economic ties would lead to peaceful reunification, and China refrained from aggressive actions to avoid triggering NATO. But this assumption has been shattered. Taiwanese identity has undergone a dramatic shift. In 1995, 80% of the population identified as fully or partly Chinese. By 2023, that figure plummeted to 28%, with 67% identifying solely as Taiwanese. This shift in identity has fueled growing support for full independence. A 2025 poll showed that 51.8% favored independence, while only 13.3% supported reunification. Beijing sees this evolution as a threat to its long-held goals. Xi Jinping has tied the reunification of Taiwan to his vision for the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation by 2049, the centenary of the People's Republic. Meanwhile, Taiwan has deepened ties with the US, Japan, and South Korea, reinforcing its geopolitical insulation from Beijing. At the same time, Taiwan's economic dependence on China has declined. It diversified its trade and became a global tech powerhouse through TSMC, which now produces over 60% of the world's semiconductors and 90% of the most advanced chips. This makes Taiwan economically competitive with China and indispensable to the global tech ecosystem. While peaceful reunification appears more unlikely, China's military might has surged. The PLA has transformed into a modern, multi-domain force, expanding its navy into the largest fleet globally and developing advanced aircraft and missile systems. The PLA rocket force boasts around 2,200 ballistic and cruise missiles, including many capable of targeting Taiwan and US bases across the Indo-Pacific. A future conflict could begin with cyber attacks, followed by a maritime blockade to suffocate Taiwan's economy. China could unleash missile strikes on military infrastructure, attempting to paralyze both Taiwan and US response capabilities. Such a scenario would likely provoke an American military reaction and potentially invoke NATO's Article 5 if Allied bases are hit. China's military exercises around Taiwan have become more realistic, simulating actual invasions. This transformation, powered by decades of investment and even espionage, has occurred despite China's economy still being about 25% smaller than the US's in nominal terms. China's explosive economic growth, over 1,400% since 1989, now faces serious headwinds. The country grapples with a real estate crisis, youth unemployment over 30%, and a declining population. Its working-age demographic peaked in 2014 and continues to shrink, worsened by the effects of the one-child policy. In 2022, China's population declined for the first time since 1958. Meanwhile, productivity has slowed drastically, and inefficient capital allocation hampers future growth. Externally, China's Belt and Road Initiative has encountered backlash due to debt, corruption, and environmental damage. Countries like Malaysia and Myanmar have cancelled or renegotiated deals. These internal and external pressures create incentives for Beijing to pivot toward nationalism and external aggression, making Taiwan an appealing target. China has also been cut off from the world's most advanced chips due to export controls by the US, Japan, and the Netherlands. TSMC stopped selling its top chips to Chinese firms, creating a widening technological gap that undermines China's military modernization. Semiconductors have become the 21st century equivalent of oil, strategic, scarce, and vital. Taiwan is also critical to China's naval ambitions. It sits on the first island chain, restricting Beijing's access to the Pacific. Controlling Taiwan would give China a strategic gateway and complicate US defense operations in the region. China's growing alliance with Russia also adds risk. The parallels between Putin's war in Ukraine and Xi's ambitions for Taiwan are unmistakable. Both frame territorial reunification as correcting historical injustices and have pursued massive military buildups while testing the West's resolve. The war in Ukraine offers lessons, both encouraging and cautionary for Beijing. Ukraine's resilience shows that a smaller force can resist a great power if armed and motivated. Taiwan has embraced a porcupine strategy, emphasizing asymmetric warfare. However, Western hesitation to confront Russia may convince China that the US would hesitate similarly in a Taiwan crisis. China's support for Russia, including trade, tech transfers, and sanction circumvention, demonstrates Beijing's willingness to defy the global order. It also offers China a playbook for handling future sanctions. If war erupts, it could be far broader than Ukraine, with the US squarely in the center. Under Biden, the US openly pledged to defend Taiwan, breaking from the long-standing strategic ambiguity policy. The Trump administration, however, has introduced unpredictability, suggesting Taiwan should pay for US protection and sending mixed signals on defense commitments. America's domestic dysfunction, polarization, infrastructure woes, and funding crises raises doubts about its ability to wage long-term strategic competition with China. Ongoing military and tech commitments in Europe, the Middle East, and Asia stretch its resources thin, and the tech war continues to escalate, with China restricting exports of rare earth elements and accelerating its domestic chip efforts. From China's viewpoint, the US appears distracted and disjointed. That could be interpreted either as an opportunity to act or as a sign of danger. Trump's volatile diplomacy could escalate tensions beyond China's expectations. The crucial question is whether Beijing sees the window for war opening or closing. Many experts point to 2027 as the likeliest year for conflict, aligning with Chinese military readiness and Xi's desire to cement his legacy. However, Beijing may strike earlier if it perceives a declining advantage. Delays only strengthen Taiwan's defenses and deepen US cooperation. If war breaks out, the likely structure is clear: cyber warfare, economic strangulation through blockades, and overwhelming missile barrages. Any such move would almost guarantee US retaliation. An attack on US bases could trigger NATO's Article 5 for only the second time in history. So what can be done to avoid, or at least delay, the inevitable? For Washington, it means striking a balance between deterrence and diplomacy. That includes investing in submarines, air defenses, unmanned systems, and missile stockpiles, while maintaining dialogue with Beijing to avoid missteps. For Taiwan, it means doubling down on asymmetric defense, decentralizing infrastructure, preparing citizens for war, and ensuring essential supplies are stockpiled. For China, peace would require abandoning the dream of reunification, at least for now, and addressing its demographic and economic crises through reform rather than conflict. But this runs counter to current trends in all three capitals. In Washington, restraint can be spun as weakness. In Taipei, the youth favor independence. In Beijing, nationalism has left no room for compromise. If these dynamics persist, Beijing may see no other option than to strike, or risk being relegated to the sidelines of history. What do you think? Will the US-China war break out in the 2020s, or can it still be postponed?